going to do one of my favorite topics, and that is making comics in Wixie. This session is actually designed for you to have a little bit of hands-on. You don't have to complete it, but we wanted to give you some time. So there is a file I will share, and for those of you who are watching on the follow-up, you will get that in the email as well. What we're going to do today is talk about the different types of characters. We're going to talk about how the setting can be handled and the layout. And we're also going to talk about how the speech bubbles can really have a difference on the meaning on the text box for the text that you share. So we're going to do all of that today. And like I said, it is meant to be hands-on. So the first thing we're going to do is, who are some of the characters that you love or even love to hate? Now, when I do this session with my fifth graders that I work with or worked with locally here, I would actually make this a team project, and I would share this. I would share it out to them and tell them to go to this page, and they would share. They would write using a text box, or they would use an image and share some of the characters that they loved, and then we would talk about it. So they'd have about a minute to two to quickly add their thoughts. So here's just a sample. I didn't add the text boxes, but they like anime characters. They like talking dogs or talking animals of any sort. Of course, they love superheroes and even the talking ninja that needs to learn to shut up sometimes, but loves tacos, so he's not too bad, right? So we get some ideas of what they like. And we also talk a little bit about how artistic these characters are. And we talk about the different characters that are available inside of Wixie. So we go ahead and we check out the image library. We go to cartoon to start off with, and we just look at the options. And of course, my computer is going to be slow bringing up those stickers, but we bring up the different options that are here. We go ahead and hit cancel, or did my computer, there it goes. It was just taking a little sweet time. All right, so we talk about the different options that are there. Now, we talk about the pros and cons about using a stock character for their main character. And I usually try to encourage them to be a little bit creative. Now, I am not an artist, and I tell that to the students. I let them know. So when it gets time to be artistic, I don't do my best work because I want them to outshine me. Now, we give them a comic book scrapbook. And this scrapbook, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and come over to the chat box here and send this out so you can go ahead and open it up. This scrapbook is one that they use to keep track of their character. Most of the students will develop a character that is going to be used all throughout the year, or at least a good portion. Some of them will change it up on a different quarter, it just depends. But they develop a character that they use throughout the year to tell the story of what they've been learning. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we talk about the curriculum connections. They get to design the cover. I try to make this as plain Jane as possible because I want them to be the creative ones. So they design the cover. And then on page 2, they name their main character, they decide what age, and then any text details that they can add here. All right. Now on the next page, they then have to write a physical description. And then on this page right here, on the other side, that's where they're going to actually draw their character. I also added a blank page because there are times that they'd rather have a full blank page to make that decision. And I'm just going to jump back to my presentation right here. And we're going to talk about how we create those characters before we do that on our paper. So to create the characters, we do stick figures. We don't want to stress about the body. In stick figures, everybody can do. I mean, we've been drawing stick figures since what, 3-4 years old, if not earlier. We're going to use the different shapes and the stickers that we already have, and we're going to glue things down when it's necessary and then turn it into a sticker. And like I said, we're not going to worry about making a fancy body. As a matter of fact, you'll see this character again, and she's got on shoes. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got a blank page here. So what we do is I tell the students to go up to images and type in the keyword face. Now, by bringing in the keyword face, they're going to find a whole bunch of different eyes, the eyebrows, the face shapes, And they can even use these character faces if they'd like. And then there's lips and a nose. So I'm going to start with this one right here. And one of the things the students always tell me, and I'm going to make it big first. I'm going to go ahead and leave it big, is they always point out that this face is not really the right shade. And I tell them, don't worry about it. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and glue it down. And once it's glued down, I can then make the shade of the face anything I want by going to the paint bucket. And if I was doing an alien, for instance, let's go ahead and change this green. I just did a major update on my computer and everything is now being slow. All right, we'll go ahead and leave. Let's see if it'll catch up. This is interesting. Don't you love it when technology decides to behave, right? All right, so we could make it green. I could change the shade. If I knew the hex number of the shade that I wanted, I could have even typed that in and use that. And that's actually what I did on my other character that I drew. I found the hex shade for skin tone. I found the one closest to my skin tone and used that. All right, what's going on here? There it goes. All right, so let's get a different color green here. And let's change the shade right here. And like I said, if I had the hex number, it would go there. All right, so the next thing I need are the eyes. And I just add one eye. Don't worry about the second. I know that eyes come in pairs in most cases. I've had students use one eye, or I've had students even use 3 or 4 eyes. And that's perfectly acceptable. It's their character. But by getting in the first eye, especially those who want it to be symmetrical, they then put it there, and then they duplicate it, and then we just flip it. So that teaches them the skill of duplicating and even flipping an image. So now we have 2 symmetrical eyes. All right, so the next step is to go ahead and glue them down, but I'm not going to glue quite yet, and there's a reason. I'm going to come back up here to my images, and I'm going to go ahead and choose my eyebrow. And this is why I did not glue it yet, because I want to make sure that the eyebrow is in the right place. I have been known to glue my eyes a little too high up, so I need to do that. And I also like to make my eyebrows a little off, so I might twist one. Again, it's another skill, just teaching them how to rotate those handles right there, those nodes. All right, so there's my eyes and my eyebrows. And then I'm going to grab the nose. And so hopefully by now you figured out what I'm doing, and if you can follow along, go ahead and jump in. I'm going to go ahead and add the nose, make that the right size. I have a big nose, so if I was modeling it after me, I'd have to make sure to get the Irish bump. And then let's get the mouth. And that's a big mouth, no matter what my son thinks. Let's go ahead and make that a little bit smaller. My mouth's not that big. All right, so once I've got everything set where I want it and I'm comfortable with it, that's when I glue everything down. So I don't glue until the last minute. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and select all of those. And it's easy to do. All I had to do was draw a box around all of those objects and then glue it down. Now, because it's glued down, it's going to be hard for me to add hair behind it. And I would also like to move this around on my page and make it smaller. That's a big head for any comic. So the next step is to use the dotted square over here. And I still stick with the dotted square, although you could use one of the other 2 tools. And just draw a box around the entire head. And then we're going to go to Edit, Convert to Sticker. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and make it just a little bit smaller. And then we're going to add the hair. Now, the hair, I actually learned a trick from a student. So I'm going to share with you how they made their long hair. They used the circle tool, and they made it build in. And we're going to give this one purple hair. Let's go ahead and make that just a little bit lighter though. And they just made sure that the hair was ovalish. Okay, now bear with me for a few minutes. They painted that oval on, and they made sure that their head fit in just about right. So that would work. Right there is fine too. And then they used the eraser and they gave her a trim, because whose hair is really ovalish looking, right? So she gave her a trim. Then she put her head on there. I think I trimmed it a little bit too much, but that's okay for my purposes. And guess what? Yep, we're going to glue again. But once we glue it down, then we can go ahead and draw another box or another shape onto it. I like to use personally the pen brush. You could choose anything you want. And I like to give it a little bit more of a definition. So I'm going to use this same purple to start with, but then I'm going to change it a little bit darker. And so then you just kind of draw in where you want the part. And because it's drawing in, you just have fun with it. So I'm just going to draw it in, and I'm going to change the shade a little bit so that way it looks like little highlights, not the same color. All right, and I'm not going to draw perfectly straight because of time, but you kind of get the idea. So I thought it was, this student had other skills that they showed off, and I'm not showing them off all at this time. But yeah, just go ahead and put some strings down, because you know my hair is always frizzy, so you got to have some depth to it. And we can always give it a trim again in just a second. So I'm not too worried about those extra strings down at the bottom. Let's go ahead and trim it now. All right, so now I've got my hair. Now, some of the students will point out that the character doesn't have ears, and I tell them, well, it's your character. Go ahead and put some ears on if you want. One of my favorite characters was Cinderella, and Cinderella didn't have ears, so it was okay. All right, but once we've got the head with the hair or lack of hair, then we go ahead and reconvert it back into a sticker again. And I suggest that they always have a scrap page. And the reason why is because we're going to want to put this on a body in a few minutes. And once we glue it down with the body, we don't want to lose the head. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this just to show you, and then glue it. You don't even have to glue it down, but so I won't. And then I'll just use the pen again and get the purple, and you just draw your stick figure. Okay. And I'm going to have this one just doing a quick jumping jack, and that's it. If you want to add some clothing, you can. As a matter of fact, if you go up to images and type in clothing, there are pieces of clothing that you could add. In one of mine, I actually did add the sneakers. So I could add some sneakers if I wanted to, or I could go ahead and put a skirt on the character if I felt like it needed a skirt. And I'm just going to make that skirt a little bit more size appropriate. And again, of course, glue it down and then give it some color. Okay. All right. So you can do that and add some other features if you want to. And if you didn't mean to, just hit your undo button. It's okay. I always like to show off the undo for the students as well. And then if they need to copy this onto another page, you got it. We're just going to make sure that the head is glued down. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take this head, move it down a little bit and rotate, and then I'm going to glue. And then I will make it into a sticker. And later, I'm going to go to Edit, Convert to Sticker. I still have that same head, so I don't have to worry about erasing the body. I just come back here and I just go to Edit, Copy, and then I can paste it wherever I need it for my comics. Okay. So there's my second character right there. All right. So did anybody create a comic? I know Caitlin's the only one on, but if you create a comic, I would love for you to tweet it out or post it on to Twizzler, to Wixie Wizards. And if you do share it on Twitter, make sure that you tag Wixie with it. Do the hashtag. Okay. All right. So after we get our characters set, then the next thing we talk about is the setting. This is important. I mean, when we talk about Superman, for instance, because he's got a new TV show out, so the kids can start reconnecting with him, and he's a lifelong superhero. We've seen him in Metropolis, and we've seen him in Smallville. And so there's a difference. When Smallville, Clark Kent would not have done well in Metropolis. And we're now learning that Metropolis Clark Kent is having some issues dealing with Smallville and the different way of thinking, going back to that way of thinking. So it's interesting to see that character development and change back into it. Now, with the setting in Wixie, we're talking not just the physical setting, but also the layout. And in this case, we're pretty lucky because if I go to File and I go to Print, I can tell it to do it as a comic book, and I will get 6 panels to a page. So every page will be a panel on my comic book page. I'm set. I'm good to go. But comics are not always a rectangular shape. Sometimes they have a scene that is divided. And that scene that is divided could be because they need a smaller panel or they need a bigger panel for emphasis for a different section, or because they're showing something happening between 2 different settings. Maybe they're communicating some way and you need to be able to share that communication and share that they're in 2 different locations. It's very easy to create your setting in Wixie. The first thing you need to do is just grab a background picture. We're going to do the first one. So I'm going to just grab a background picture, and I think we'll do Arabian Nights for this one. All right. So hopefully that won't take but a second. There it goes. And you'll see that I have a text box there. I'm just going to delete. That was to remind me what to do here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually use the line tool, and I'm going to use, let's use yellow, and I'm just going to draw a line. Now, here's another trick. If you want this line to be straight up and down, maybe you wanted to divide the page, you might not get a perfect line. However, let's go ahead and undo this. Let's make that line a little bit smaller. If I start at the top and hold my shift button down and then draw the line will be straight. So just to give you a tip, let go. I'm good. If I want to do it again, that's interesting. Draw the line across and it's straight. So just hold that shift key down and you will get a straight line. All right. My computer's really being fun right now. Sorry about that. All right. So we've got our segments. Now I'm just going to go ahead and keep this section right here. And what I'm going to do is go to my paint bucket. And I'm going to change this to, let's do the dots, but we're going to go ahead and make this black. When I dump that in, oh, actually, let's undo that and let's get this color so it'll all kind of blend in. There we go. Still black, but not quite as black. All right, so that's now going to be one small scene. And then I wanted to keep Agrabah. I'm going to use the night scene, and I want that to look something totally different because they are in a different realm, we'll say. So let's go ahead and use, let's use this one right here. And because this one is supposed to be someplace different, we'll make it yellow but lighter and just dump that in. Now, because the Arabian Nights was a background picture, you're able to draw on top of it. If you had put it in differently, it would have been harder. You would have had to make sure you glued it down and you would have had to resize it, and that's just a pain. So you want to make sure that your first image is a background picture. Here's another tip. On this page right here, I used a background picture and then I divided my panel. I have a picture up here at the top. If I move this one away, see, there's that background. And then these two are the shapes that I just used on the same other one where we just colored. So I could go to images and I could go to Picks for Learning and I could do architecture and we'll put a castle. So maybe they are doing an exploration, a flyover for the Arabian Nights. They're going to leave Agrabah and they're going to go to this castle. And so I'm going to go ahead and put that one over here. And then what I'm going to do is fill this, let's leave it just like that. So I can now do maybe a text box over here. I could do them flying on the carpet over here. I can have the people of Agrabah going, oh, wow, look up in the sky. And then I could have a princess over here going, oh, Jasmine's on the way. So you could make up a whole little story in those 4 sections fairly easy, okay, with your setting. And you have 4 different settings happening, all right? The other thing we're going to talk about is the way text boxes can really change the meaning. So I have my character, and I told you I used sneakers on her just to give her an outfit. So all we had to do is a simple little a little prop there just to show that she's doing something. And in the first text box, it's nice, bright, and pink, and it's happy. And she says, "This workout is fun. Let's do this." So she's just starting the workout. Let's go ahead and take this text box and delete it. And she's thinking, "Oh, my legs are burning." So she's gotten into this workout. She's probably almost in about 15 minutes. And then she's screaming, "Oh my God, stop it with the knee lifts already." So you can see that the first one was kind of fun and happy. And the second one, it's a thought. She's getting a little unsure about this right now because her legs are starting to hurt. And then she is, wow. Ooh, she's done. She's yelling right back at the video or the instructor. Now, this last text box, phew, 5 miles done. So proud of me. I just used a simple text box. I could have made this better. If I select the text box and come over here to the bubble, I can then change it. All right, I'm going to stick with the straight bubble. That's fine with me. But I am going to make this green because green means growth and go. So colors mean something. Okay, so I've got green. And I'm going to go ahead and put the fill is also a green, but I'm going to make that fill a lighter green. All right, so green is growth, and that's why I chose that. So we've got happy to start. We've got a thought. We've got a screaming mad bubble here. And then we've got a simple, hey, we're kind of happy here. We're growing. We're doing good. So your text bubbles will also mean something when you create your characters, okay? So hopefully you've got your workbook. The link will be sent to you for those of you who are watching this video, and you can use this scrapbook. I'm going to go to storyboard mode real fast. This is your cover page, your description page. I get the students to write. And then they do a physical description and draw, and then they have a scratch page to also draw. I also have them make a list of friends and enemies because sometimes they'll forget things, and it's important. They come back to this scrapbook constantly. They might put in on another page that's blank here other notes, like my character went on a time travel trip and has seen the asteroids hit firsthand, or they visited the wall of China being built. So they'll put notes in here that's important to their character, especially if they are using that character to share what they've been learning all year long. So they don't want to forget something that would negate an older story, okay? And so we do give them several pages of scrap that they can work on and keep track of all of that, all right? How would you integrate this into your classroom? Well, pretty easy. My students loved, my second graders especially, they loved making PSA posters. They would make their characters and they'd create a poster and they'd have fun with it. That simple one panel comic, that was easy for them. Some of them went on and did 4 to 6 panels, and that was fun for them too. And they actually did print those and they put them in the school front office for other students and visitors to read, or they'd hang them up in the hallway. So PSA posters as comics are definitely fun. My 5th graders liked doing social studies with time traveling, sort of like the Magic Tree House. The STEM and science discoveries, there's a Brain Pop video series, well, a Brain Pop extra series, the Joey the Fish. I know one of them is named Joey. I don't remember who the second character is. I remember Joey because my son thought that they modeled Joey the Fish after him, which we kind of laughed because he was like, "Oh, he even talks like me." He's a little duh. I was like, "You're funny, Joey." So anyway, this Joey would always make some of his own little Joey comics based off of the Brain Pop movie. So they would summarize and share something, another extension. Character education is a very hot topic. And another good thing to do is retell a story. If your students are old enough and they are reading things such as Percy Jackson or even The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, they have done those as graphic novels. So they can retell any of the stories that they're reading, even if it's from a different perspective, such as Flipped. You have Julie and Bryce's perspectives. Well, you could put that in a comic format and tell the story from a different perspective in a comic format. It's non-threatening for the students. It's fun. It's great to teach them summary skills. It's great to teach them about setting and how details are very, very important. There is another webinar that we did about comics that go more details. So this is just a brief one and some ways to get you started. But I did bring in this page from the last presentation, which will give you some different samples. So if you click on each one of these, this was my son's comic about his seizures and how they made him feel. And he did a comic for his classroom. This one's a retelling. This is a story that my niece wrote. And it was just getting started, figuring out where the character's from and what the background story was. Some PSAs. I love this one. There is a book about You Don't Know Much About History by, I want to say Ken, I always forget his name. But anyway, so the students would choose a story out of there. And this one, like I said, it's one of my favorites. They did The Bay of Pigs. And a lot of people were confused because, where are the pigs? So this tells the story of the Bay of Pigs, and they don't use the actual character. So for like John F. Kennedy, you're using a picture. CIA agent, no face, so faceless person. And when they are doing, let me get to one of these pages real fast. The discussion between the countries, they choose to do the flags. So that's another fun one. And then there is a Google Doc of resources. And if you click on that link, it will take you to our Google Doc. And here you will find digital storytelling resources from the Digital Storytelling Network. I usually do this webinar with Debbie Bahanan. She'll be with me at ISTE. And so these are some of our resources that we will be sharing then that you can use in your classroom, okay? And then those samples of Wixie as well. All right, so let me go ahead and stop sharing and check the chat. Do we have any questions, Caitlin? Are we good? You can talk. It's okay. Matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and stop. Thank you all for viewing. Caitlin, thank you for coming back so I didn't talk to myself for everyone who needed to view. Let me go ahead and stop recording.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.